Namaste, viewers, and welcome to this episode of Amazing Vedas with Dr. Pariksith Singh. Thank you, Dr. Singh, for joining us. I think you have something to say about or ask about
Yes,
evil.
yes. So this one is my time to throw the googly, the Chinaman. Well, so let me throw a curveball. In America, we throw the curveball. So Makarandji, and Makarandji comes from a very famous, powerful lineage of Angi Rasa Rishis, who themselves they were so intense that they became fire themselves. That's one fable. And then of course Parashara, who with his, shall we say, his seed was initiated the whole lineage of Bharata eventually, and the Kauravas and Pandavas came from it, and the age that followed of the golden age of India. So that's the lineage that you carry. No pressure, Makaranji. But let me ask you a question, and I would like to get your insight on it, because it becomes a quite an important issue for our discussions. Is what is the concept of evil in the Veda?
Yeah, it's such a big topic. I just wanted to comment on the idea of lineages. You see, whenever people, wherever they came from, they got absorbed into this society, the Vedic society, they were always linked to the founders of this society, which were always rishis, and it's a wonderful way to connect with. Even today, we talk about lineages whenever there are teachers in the West, even of the, yoga and other things, they always talk about lineage. Even in the Sufis, they talk about lineage. So in our society also, you'll see every clan, every family is linked to some great rishi. And in my case, Angi Ras is one of our, pravars, that is the founders of the lineage, but also two Kshatriya kings, you see, Paurukuts and Trasadasyu. So Trasadasyu, the guy who gave the Dasyus a hard time, in other words, he actually pummeled them, and Dasyus are again these forces of obstruction, of darkness, and you described the fight between Indra and Vritra so beautifully. And I was thinking about this, I was reflecting on this. And just imagine, if you even think about it for a moment, what if the sun were obscured, say in a nuclear winter or something, So these rays of the sun, symbolically represented as cows, and stolen and taken underground. Just think about it. If you didn't get solar energy, because all energy on our planet, even oil, fossil fuels, ultimately they derive from the sun, even nuclear energy. So imagine a dark cloud over the earth obstructing the sun. We would have nuclear winter, and possibly something like this did happen. There are, uh, proofs of this. They say a meteorite struck the earth, and human populations dwindled to as low as 10,000, etc., etc. We won't go into that. The point being that if you obstruct the sun or the rays of the sun, or if you obstruct the waters, imagine that as well, or for that matter, if you obstruct the wind, air. Yesterday we were talking about pollution in Delhi. You're going to choke off life. So the forces of evil applied to today's world are precisely those forces which, for profit or for pleasure or for dominance, are trying to, take charge of these things. Or maybe the airwaves, the
Yes.
microwaves, who knows, 5G, 4G. But the point I'm leading up to, and I want your comment on it also, that see, the Vedic view of evil and the Abrahamic view of evil are so different. You see, there is no original sin in the Veda, number one. Number two, there is no good versus evil. That is not the central fight in the Veda. It is between Rita and Anrita. You see, so what is Rita? We've already seen it's order, truth, the rhythm, of the cosmos, the rhythm of the seasons, of righteousness, the reliability, the sun, the moon, the stars. you know, the whole culture of sacrifice, consecration, moral alignment, and there are these famous verses, 191, for example, where they say Rita and Satya arose from tapas, again, like the Dichi.
Yes.
And tapas
Yes.
comes from Agni,
Yes.
and then night rises and the oceanic flood and so forth. So, Ritam cha Satyam, I think that's the verse. It goes like that. I don't remember it. I think Ritam cha Satyam cha bhid something something cha bhidat, tapaso dhya ajayata. Yeah, I think that's what it is. So these verses are crucial. So we are talking about order versus disorder, and I think you put it very well earlier on. Duality, diablo, the devil, division, versus union. Yoga, we said, was union, but what is this union? Look, there is already cosmic unity. So only when we break the unity do we want to reunite. But if you understand, if you realize the original unity has never been broken, it's an unbroken it's an unbroken unity, and it's at the cosmic level, it's at the particular level, and even the particular level, at the waves, at the energy level. We are all waves after all. What are we? It's an interesting idea that somebody mentioned. In fact, we've started another vertical, Dr. Singh, called Contemporary Masters. And, I was talking to Guruji Nand Kishore Tiwari, whom you've also met. And then he said something very interesting. He said, from the cosmic eye, you don't exist. But from the cosmic eye is the reason you exist. So I didn't understand. Then I thought that he's punning on EYE and I. So from the cosmic eye, there are no individuals. It's all one cosmos. But from the cosmic eye, that is the ultimate subject. Consciousness, Aham, is the first name of consciousness. So when, as it were, Prajapati awakens, he says I. So anyhow, the point being that it's not good versus evil as in the Abrahamic sense. And even there, that there's always that conundrum. If God is almighty, omniscient, and he's omnipresent, then Satan or evil also comes from him. And they obscure that, you see, because then if you see a single origin idea, then even evil is a fall. But here's the important thing, and I want to comment on it. Somehow the Christians, even I think later on the Muslims, they turn evil into a disobedience. I'm reminded of the opening of Paradise Lost, of man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose taste, brought death into the world and all our woe. Sing heavenly muse, etc. Disobedience. Yes, even here, if you disobey the cosmic order, but it's not obedience, it's misalignment. And unfortunately, then obedience to the cosmic principle becomes turned into obedience into some kind of jealous deity out there. And then, even, so to speak, more dangerously, disobedience of a single prophet is then punished as apostasy or as kufr. So we are talking about a completely different universe. And then, just before I turn it over to you, this morning I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about Hobbes and Rousseau, you see, at the start of our modern age, and how Hobbes in his Leviathan says the human being is like original sin, it's a wretched and, fallen beast. And unless you have a very strong state regulating human conduct, they're going to run amok. And then Rousseau, who was like a neo pagan, we are pagans, I must say. We are not neo pagans. We are really old pagans, very old pagans. And old pagans, please don't
Archi,
think
ar- archi-pagans.
archi pagans. The ur pagans, the ur from the pur, Look, I mean, don't think about pagans as running amok and being immoral and doing terrible things. The original pagans were followers of the cosmic order, as we've been trying to suggest. But anyhow, I think Rousseau was a happy pagan or an unhappy one. We know a lot about Rousseau and his illegitimate children now, but we know that Rousseau thought about human beings, even primitive human beings, as the noble savage. And that's how these ideas came into the Romantic poets. So you have these two contending ideas of who human beings themselves are. And please, now I want to turn it back to you. Don't you think that these two ideas of good and evil are so important even today, how they influence the way we live, how we act, and how we think about our future?
Yes, absolutely. It's a paradigm shift, and the issue is not that a certain view of the world sees the fall or division or duality and says, okay, there are two forces, good and bad. And really, it started with Zarathustra, the Ahura Mazda and the Ahriman, as if they are equal, as if they could be equal. That is not what the Veda says. According to the Veda, there is a unity. In that, within that unity, all multiplicity happens, including what appears as evil, including what appears as a division. Now, when you take Zarathustra's model, the model itself is a division. It's not that the model is talking about a division. The moment you accept the model, your brain is already split into good and evil. And that is the challenge. To realize that, to recover. See, the pure noble savage did not think of division, did not think of duality. He was innocent and naive and pure to not even know what duality is. The moment the knowledge of duality comes, that itself is the fall. To me, I take it as a very powerful metaphor of what has happened to the human condition, but it is within the human realm, you can say that we are split. And that is the challenge, the beauty, the opportunity of being humanity, being human. That is where the fall happens. There is no fall for the lion even when he's eating the deer, because it is still part of that oneness. There's no fall when the deer is eating the grass, still part of the oneness. It's one. When humans come, in our realm there is duality, and but this duality is within the wholeness of the cosmos. Once we realize that, once we know that even in this duality there's a oneness that is sustaining this duality, then something changes. Then we are back, we can flip back to the original paradigm, where it is no longer a battle between a god and a devil, where all is God, all is the creation of God, if we want to call it God or the divinity or the oneness. And oneness, recovering our original oneness, recovering our original innocence, in a way, kind of reverses this paradigm and fulfills the original understanding of oneness and coming back to the rhythm. So I think there's a lot to learn from the two models. And if we can keep the models together and find how they come together, we don't have to artificially reconcile them, but see the validity of each, and in that seeing together, perhaps there is a reconciliation. And that's how at least I've seen. There's no point fighting it, because then again there's more division.
Exactly, exactly. In fact, I was thinking about the root of the word vritra also.
Yes,
Isn't it to cover? The root
yes,
is to cover,
that's
enclose,
right.
obstruct.
Avran. Yes.
And I wanted to ask you one more thing from our discussion of Vritra, and we will continue our talking, this discussion on evil as well, probably in the next episode. But, the serpent, this idea of, the dragon or the serpent. Now, how powerful this dragon symbol is across cultures, Of course, the serpent, we talked a little bit about the serpent last time, and in your collection, Satya, Poems to My Father, the serpent comes, the king cobra, and how we, in a way, Shiva tames the serpent, right? But the dragon, there was such a popular show on HBO on the House of the Dragon and the Game of Thrones. It's all about, dragons. And then
Yes.
China, they still believe, we still call China the dragon, the red dragon or whatever. So somehow human consciousness, or the dominance of human beings on this planet, had to, I suppose there was some displacement. Maybe it was the dinosaurs, or maybe the dragon is a symbol. Because in Aboriginal cultures, as you know, even in Australia, they believe in this rainbow serpent creation. And then there are these ancient pictograms where the sky itself they thought was like a serpent, you see, because maybe a meteorite struck. We don't know. But it's shrouded in mystery, and mystery, as you said, is an opportunity. It's not, so every obstruction is actually a challenge to human consciousness. And we need not be pessimistic. The point that I keep making is that the Vedic view of the world opens up possibilities within us. It's not meant to push us back, it's actually meant to help us in our onward journey as human beings. So, with these words, thank you, Dr. Singh. Thank you, viewers, for joining us. And please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Look out for Amazing Vedas for Gen Z on X, which is, of course, Twitter. And till next time, namaste.